We spend so much time looking back, right, in the rearview mirror,
hmm Always trying to learn from the past.
trying to understand why things are the way they are by digging through what already happened. But what if there's a bit of a blind spot there?
Yeah, like what if we're missing something?
Exactly. What if we could actually learn something really profound by, well, shifting our gaze forward?
That's pretty much the core question Rutger Bregman asks in this really thought-provoking article he wrote, How to Learn from the Future.
Right.
And that's exactly what we're going to dig into in this deep dive. He really challenges that default mode.
Hmm.
You know, looking back, he suggests looking ahead might give us some, well, surprising insights for the decisions we make today.
Yeah, totally. So our goal here is to really try and get our heads around this idea, this reverse historical thinking, as he calls it.
hmm
How can picturing ourselves like way off in the future actually help us make better choices, see things more clearly right now? It sounds a bit counterintuitive.
It does, a little, but let's unpack it.
Okay, so the conventional wisdom, it's almost baked into us, isn't it?
Absolutely. That the past is the ultimate teacher. We look back at history, our own experiences, market trends, whatever.
All to pull out lessons we think we can apply going forward.
Exactly. It feels logical. Look at what happened to figure out what might happen next.
It's definitely the standard approach. Learn from your mistakes, study the greats, analyze the crashes. It's all looking backward for the answers.
But Bregman just flips that script. He asks this really interesting question. What if we could learn directly from the future?
Okay, that sounds a little bit sci-fi, maybe.
Huh? Maybe a little. But he grounds it in some really powerful examples, real stories.
Okay, like what?
Well, the first one is pretty stark. It shows how being fixated on the present, on what seems likely now, can blind us to what's actually coming. He talks about that German scout plane just before World War II.
Oh, the one that crashed near the Netherlands. With the invasion plans inside. That's a heck of an example.
It really is. So this German plane goes down near the Dutch border,
Wow.
and inside, detailed plans for invading the Netherlands, Belgium, and France.
Wow. Not just rumors, like actual documents.
Concrete evidence. Hard proof of what was being planned.
You'd think alarm bells would be ringing everywhere, a massive call to action, right?
You would think. But, and this is the crucial part, the Dutch intelligence at the time, they largely dismissed it.
Dismissed it. Why?
Well, their thinking was basically that such a huge invasion seemed too much, too audacious. It just didn't fit with how they saw the political situation then.
Huh. So they were kind of stuck in their present day assumptions.
Exactly, anchored in there now. They couldn't really wrap their heads around this future reality, even though the evidence was right there.
And the consequence, devastating. They lost that critical time to prepare, maybe change the outcome, or at least lessen the blow.
Absolutely. It just shows how our current beliefs can create this tunnel vision, right? We can miss really clear warnings about what's ahead.
Yeah, it really makes you wonder about our own blind spots now, personally, professionally. Are we dismissing future possibilities because they just don't fit our current picture of the world?
That's the connection he wants us to make, I think. It's not just history. It's a human tendency. And then he brings it way down to the personal level. The story about his grandmother and his aunt.
Oh, yeah, that one really stuck with me, the unresolved fight.
Yes. It's quite poignant. He talks about his grandmother passing away without ever reconciling with her daughter, his aunt. They'd been estranged for ages.
Just sort of stuck, waiting for the other person to make the first move.
Pretty much. An unspoken standoff. And the result, of course, was final. The chance for healing, for connection. It just vanished when his grandmother died.
God, that's heavy. It's such a common thing, though, isn't it? Putting things off with people we care about.
It is. And Bregman's lesson from it is so blunt, so direct. Do not wait. Especially with relationships, important conversations. Putting things off can lead to regret that lasts forever.
It really forces you to think about the things you put off, assuming there's always tomorrow. Mending that friendship, starting that project, having that difficult talk.
Yeah. These stories, the big historical one and the intensely personal one, they really set the stage for why Bregman thinks just looking backward isn't enough. And then he goes deeper, questioning the nature of history itself.
Right, his definition of history.
Yeah, he says, history is not everything that ever happened. It's everything that has been written down about the things that happened.
Which immediately flags that history isn't some complete objective truth. It's a record. And records are selective, shaped by who wrote them, what they cared about.
Exactly. He points out the difference between prehistory, that massive stretch of time before writing, and history, the bit we have documents for.
Just think about how much human experience just isn't in the books. Millions of years.
It's staggering. So much we can never know, never learn from in that traditional way.
It's humbling, really, and Bregman argues this selectivity, this inherent bias in the record, doesn't just affect how we see the past. It shapes the assumptions we carry around now, assumptions we then project onto the future.
And he gives some great examples of these hidden assumptions, like, think about your own birthday. You just accept it's correct because someone told you, right?
Yeah, pretty much. Or like the Earth going around the sun, we trust the scientists.
We trust the authority. These are foundational beliefs we rarely stop to examine, but Bregman uses them to ask, how might other, maybe less obvious assumptions be limiting us, especially when we look back at, say, early human societies?
You mean like the whole hunter-gatherer thing?
Yes, specifically the rigid gender roles often tacked onto that. Men hunt, women gather. He points out this framework was heavily influenced by, 18th century male scholars looking back. Maybe it wasn't quite that neat.
And those preconceived notions could even make people ignore evidence that didn't fit, like archaeologists finding women buried with weapons but kind of explaining it away.
Precisely. Because it clashed with the established story. So these deep-seated assumptions about the past, about gender, about what's normal, they don't just color our history books. They actively shape how we expect the future to unfold. They limit what we even think is possible.
Okay, so this is where his idea of reverse history comes in.
Exactly. This is the pivot.
So we know how regular historians work. They look back from now to figure out the past. How is reverse history different?
Well, instead of going backward from the present, Bregman says, try starting at a point in the future and looking back towards today.
Okay. Interesting. How does that actually work? Like, what are the steps?
It's actually quite a practical thought experiment. Step 1. Imagine yourself, let's say, 50 years from now. Get a real sense of yourself at that older age.
Okay, picturing it. Gray hair and all.
Maybe. Then step 2, and this is key, look back from that future vantage point. What choices you're making right now, today, will actually seem important then? What will really matter in the grand scheme of your life?
Okay. Filtering out the noise.
Exactly. And step 3, use that insight, that future perspective, to make better decisions now.
It's like getting advice from your older, wiser self. He had that great parenting example, didn't he?
He did. Really relatable. He talks about when his kids want to do something messy, paint, mud pies, whatever.
The kind of thing that makes parents twitch about the cleanup.
Right. The immediate instinct might be, no, too messy, ruined clothes. But then he does the time travel thing. He pictures himself at 80, looking back at that exact moment.
And from that perspective.
Will he remember the stained T-shirt? Probably not. Will he remember his kids' faces lit up with joy, feeling free?
Yeah.
Absolutely. That future view helps him prioritize what actually matters long-term in that specific moment.
That's powerful. It makes you stop and think about your own daily grind. Are you sweating the small stuff that won't matter in 5 years, let alone 50? Or are you focusing on the things that build the memories, the relationships, the legacy your future self will cherish?
Precisely. So for you listening right now, how can you start using this reverse historical thinking?
Yeah, how do we try this mental time travel?
Well, Bregman basically invites you to do it. Actively project yourself forward. Maybe imagine you're 70 or 80. Settle into that perspective. And then ask yourself some tough questions looking back on the life you've lived up to that point.
Okay, like what kind of questions?
Questions like, what regrets might you be carrying? What words did you leave unsaid? What dreams did you put on the shelf and never take down? What big decisions did you keep delaying?
Oof. Yeah, those can be uncomfortable to sit with, confronting potential future regrets.
They really can be. But that discomfort, it's often a sign you're onto something important. By facing these potential future feelings now, in the present, you actually gain agency. You're not just drifting towards that future, you get a chance to steer.
So it's about spotting the potential regret now while you still have time to change the outcome.
Exactly. It's like future-proofing your life against if-onlys.
But Bregman doesn't just keep it personal, does he? He scales this idea up, talks about collective denial.
He does. He links it back. The Dutch intelligence, ignoring those invasion plans. His aunt, delaying the reconciliation. He sees a similar pattern in how societies sometimes deal with uncomfortable truths. A kind of collective turning away.
A reluctance to face potential future consequences, even when the evidence is pretty clear.
Yes. And he brings it right into the present, using the example of climate change and our consumption habits. Things like meat and dairy consumption.
where the scientific consensus is strong, but action maybe lags behind.
Right. He suggests we often collectively downplay the warnings, maybe hoping for a tech fix down the road or just finding it too hard to change now. But he asks that really pointed question, what will future generations say when they look back at us? Will they ask, they knew, why didn't they act?
That's a chilling thought. It really is. It connects to that Churchill quote he uses.
History will be kind to me, for I intend to write it.
Yeah, that sense of taking control of the narrative.
And Bregman riffs on that beautifully. He says, the future will be fine to us if we decide to write it.
Wow. That's not passive. That's a call to action.
It really is. It's about taking ownership, deciding to actively shape our future, individually and together. Our ethics, our direction, the story that gets told about this time.
Okay, so let's boil this down. For you, the learner listening in, what are the absolute key takeaways from Bregman's ideas here?
I think there are a few core things. First, question your assumptions. Really question them, even the ones that feel totally obvious or deeply personal.
Okay, what else?
Second, use that mental time travel.
Yeah?
Seriously, try it. Picture your future self. Use that perspective to reverse engineer your choices today.
Makes sense.
Third, remember that history is selective. The official record is incomplete. And guess what? The story of your life, your regrets, that's also selective. You have a say in what story gets written.
I like that. Taking authorship.
And finally, maybe the biggest one. Responsibility here isn't a burden, it's actually agency. The future isn't just something that happens to you. It's something you can shape. It's yours to influence.
That's a really empowering way to look at it. It flips the script from just being shaped by the past to actively designing the future we want to experience.
Exactly. Moving from reactive learning to proactive creation. Instead of just learning from what's done, learning from what could be.
Aiming for a future self who looks back and says, yeah, I'm glad I did that, not, oh, if only.
That's the goal, right? It's a sense of fulfillment, not regret.
So, okay, final thought for you, our listener. Building on all this, consider one decision you're facing right now. Could be big, could be small. Now try it. How does your 80-year-old self view that choice? What action does that future perspective nudge you towards today?
It's a fascinating exercise. Definitely check out the link to Bregman's article if you want to explore this more.
Absolutely. Because remember, thinking about the future this way, engaging in this reverse historical thinking, it's not just about passively learning. It's about actively building a more intentional and hopefully a more meaningful future for yourself.